for the first time this season, the Pharmaceutical Soccer Podcast does not open in a joyful manner, but we will be joyful in just a few moments because we are joined today by Valair Shabilla, and he's got a lot to be happy about, even though his club soccer teams did not exactly have the best last few days. Valair's in a good mood. Clay Trainum joining you. Steven Robinson is out. I know it's strange because Michigan is playing for a national title in basketball and Steven's not here, which tells you that he's not confident. That's what that means, right, Valair?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Valair, give us your latest college basketball takes.
Hola a todos. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí grabando con mi amigo Clay. Realmente disfruta mi tiempo en Monterrey y me encantaría volver pronto.
Okay.
Claramente no estoy usando el traductor de Google para hablar español. El resto del programa será en español porque ahora hablo el idioma. Did I do good?
Yeah, sure.
I've been practicing for so long. No, I'm just so excited to be here. I don't know.
Yeah,
you asked me about Steven. You know what? I think Steven only shows up when this team is doing well, Nashville SC, and as soon as they lost, he just decided not to show up. And, that's just a character flaw that we have to accept from one of our hosts. But, that was me attempting to speak Spanish through Google Translate. So I just wanted to do that. That was
I look forward to getting Joel's rundown of Valair's Spanish in the Pharma Slack later.
The things I have done to the Spanish language by doing that bit are, borderline criminal. So, I had to give it a go.
Okay, so Valair, we're going to get to your time in Monterrey.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, because it's going to be way more fun to talk about than Nashville SC's game against Chicago.
Yes.
Which we'll get to more in depth in the second segment. But first off, let's just get it out of the way. Nashville gets its first loss of the season. Not the best performance, and maybe puts a little bit of a damper on the start of the season. But at the end of the day, the big stuff is happening this week. Nashville SC is playing Club America in one of the biggest games in club history. Tomorrow for the first leg. And so that is where we're going to put a lot of focus, but we will talk about the Chicago game quite a bit in the second segment. And, those games do happen in MLS, specifically on the road.
Yeah. It's one of those also coming back from international break. I think that has to be taken into account. I don't want this to sound like an excuse. Nashville went in there as a favorite and they should have at least gotten a result. I think that's very much fair to say. I do think there's something about Greg Berhalter trying to get, a one on BJ because BJ has gotten the best out of his teams recently. But overall, I thought Chicago were the better team. I don't know if they deserved the win, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think they played that well, but whenever you have a goalkeeper kind of hit that level and then you take advantage of the pretty much one opportunity you got, you just gotta, you're the home team. And for Nashville, it's just, I don't think we're going to be talking about this match next week. Like, I just think it's going to be something that happened and you move on.
Yeah. I do think, it's also worth noting, these are the types of things that happen when you're playing in multiple competitions.
Yeah.
And Nashville has been able to get results despite this sort of fixture congestion. Now, they actually didn't have a lot of fixture congestion going into this game, but this was a result that's probably been coming and is worth noting. And we will talk about that a little bit more later. But for now, we're going to skip how my weekend was. It was fine. It was fine. But Valair became an international superstar over the last week. And so let's start off with you. For those that don't know, and I don't know how you've listened to Pharmaceutical Soccer this long and don't know, Valair is a refugee from Baghdad, and he got to see his favorite team, his national team, play in person for the first time ever to go to the World Cup in Monterrey, which is why he did that whole bit in Spanish earlier, if you didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. No,
So,
I'm just practicing Spanish. Don't worry about it.
Blair, how much of a high are you still on right now?
Today was the first day I would say that it wasn't like the extreme high. I think I'm still feeling it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm still there, but it kind of like continued on. And when I came back home on Wednesday night, and the match was Tuesday night. So obviously emotions were still running high. By the way, if you haven't seen any videos of that time in Monterey, I would highly recommend going and looking at. Best place to look at them will be my account on Instagram and TikTok, but also
And
you
YouTube.
can and YouTube. That is true. I am on the shorts these days. But also you can go look at them. You know, anywhere else you get your soccer content, but the atmosphere, the vibes there in Monterey were just, I mean, a dream come true for somebody like me. But also, I think any soccer fan would feel those feelings and will understand the reaction that that game had and that whole environment had. But yeah, I'm coming down a little bit. I think it being Monday, having to do like real life things, hasn't hasn't gone well for me. It's not that like when MLS kicked off on Saturday, it's not that I was not paying attention. It was just that it was hard for me to actually like focus on MLS. Because like I had to force myself to watch a couple of the games, and like obviously the Nashville SC game, I was like, all right, come on, like lock in. But I was kind of out of focus a little bit with it because it was just one thing after another with being in Monterey, then coming back home, and then immediately like kicking off MLS, and then just the high of being in the stands as a fan and being all, you know, being hyped up and not being in the press box and typing stuff down and stuff like that. So it's like it was it was a different vibe than what I'm used to with soccer, at least the last few years. So it was like really nice to have that outlet, and then coming back and being like, okay, now I'm on my couch watching Chicago versus Nashville was just not the vibe, I think. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like there's a level that we're missing here. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm just excited that I got to experience that again. It was awesome. The people of Monterrey, Mexican people there were incredible. They supported us, supported Iraq, supported us through the whole thing, and they were just super welcoming, super heartwarming. And I couldn't have I couldn't have had this playoff match anywhere else. I think I didn't know that going into it. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. But the Iraqi diaspora here in North America and in Europe, some showed up, and even from further away, probably, and supported the team. And the Mexican people there supported Iraq, and Iraq were able to pull through. In our first World Cup in 40 years, our second World Cup ever, and the only time we've ever played in a World Cup was also in Mexico. So it was a really nice poetic moment to kind of, you know, full circle situation.
So I called Valair on Wednesday, probably not long after he got back in the
No, it
country.
was like an hour or two after I got home. Yeah.
Yeah, but so some of this stuff we've already talked about, but now we're just going to talk about it on the podcast. So we talked a lot about the Iraqi national team. I don't know, probably 4 years ago on here when we were trying to fill space
Yeah.
during the downtimes, and I couldn't find the episode. And just to give, we're not going to spend like 20 minutes talking about this, but I do think it is important because it is a major story. It's a major story in your life, and you've been on this show for a long time. Like, what is the importance? Like, how can you adequately convey the importance of the Iraqi national team? Because when you're talking about it on TikTok, you're trying to fit it in like 90 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to do that here. This is
Yeah.
our show. So, like,
I, this is so Iraq is a diverse place. Let's just start there. And whenever there's a diverse place, and we see it here in America a lot, I think, like there are different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, and different ways of doing things. And there aren't many moments of unity within our culture in Iraq, total unity within the nation. There are always people who disagree with people, which is not necessarily something that's wrong. It's just what the reality is. We have different ethnic groups, we have different religions, we have different races, we're just different people in Iraq, and we're all under this same identity of being Iraqis. When it, when the national team plays, it is, I kid you not, the only time I've seen my country as united as that. And that's how powerful it is. And in 2007, I've talked about this before. In 2007, Iraq won the Asian Cup as a massive, massive underdog, like massive underdog in the midst of a civil war, terrorist attacks, foreign invasion, all sorts of stuff was going on back home. And these players went out and beat the top of the Asian Federation. They beat Australia during that run. They beat South Korea during that run. They beat Saudi Arabia in the final during that run. Countries that have, they're World Cup mainstays, right? And Iraq, again, were not nowhere near that. So I was still in Baghdad back then. I hadn't left the country. And I saw what that win did, and it stopped a lot of the violence, and it at least paused a lot of the violence for a few days.
We
There were
talked about it
celebrations.
in comparison to like the Ivory Coast,
Yeah,
with Drogba, which is what most people will have heard about, but maybe not heard about Iraq.
yeah. I think it was fairly similar. I think where kind of there's this uniting thing, and you look at the national team, and there are people from all over the place, and actually here in Nashville we have a huge Kurdish population. Kurdistan is currently at least part of Iraq as a country, and there were Kurdish people from Nashville who took the trip to Monterey to support Iraq, and that's something that I wouldn't have guessed would have happened. So that was like really cool to see as well. And so so seeing in 2007, there was a Kurdish player who assisted the goal to the Arab guy who scored the goal, and it was kind of a moment of unity. And that's the goal in the final of the Asian Cup that again united the country and had this sort of crazy celebrations throughout the country. So then having this kind of repeated now in Monterey, where we saw sects from different Iraqi ethnic groups and religions, whether it's the Assyrians, Chaldeans, Christian groups, or the Kurdish folks, or the different sects of Islam that there is. All of that was represented in this national team, and you saw different flags being raised, obviously all under the Iraqi flag. And I just thought it's a really beautiful moment because we don't get many of those in our country, and uh, being there, experiencing it, it was just really awesome. And I don't think it can be underestimated what that means to the people back home as well. Because I've talked about the diaspora a lot because there's a lot of us, because a lot of us had to leave the country because it was unsafe. But the people back home, they welcomed the team when they flew into Jordan, in Amman. Then they welcomed the team as they drove into Iraq because they can't fly into Iraq because of the airspace issue that's going on with the war. And I mean, they welcomed them all the way from the border to Baghdad. Then they had a parade where hundreds of thousands of people showed up for the national team. And then the next 2 days after the match were given as a national holiday. That's how big of a difference this is. And then if that all of that wasn't enough, the head coach of Iraq, his name is Graham Arnold. He's from Australia. He flew home to Australia, and when he landed at the airport in Australia, there were Iraqi fans who live in Australia, like Iraqi diaspora in Australia, who welcomed him with drums and songs and everything like that at the airport. So this is a huge deal for us. This is a very, very big deal for us, and it's way more than just a sport. It's a uniting front, and it's something that I'm just happy and glad I was part of.
And, then kind of building off of that, you come from a minority like a minority group within Iraq, like Chaldean, and like you talked about how there's always been Chaldeans that were part of the Iraq
Mhm.
national team going all the way back. So how does it speak to you, like personally, to see that?
It's awesome, man. It's awesome. Like seeing. So, a lot of times you can tell by the name which group people the guys belong to, right? And it's like, so seeing those names and the starting lineup, and then people who came in. But honestly, like at the time, I wasn't thinking, oh, this guy is Kurdish, or this guy's Chaldean, or this guy's whatever. Like I was so excited that there was this Iraqi national team in front of me. And I think that's the feeling that came across everybody after the fact, when I saw the flags and I saw sort of the, again, unity of the national team. I think it sent a really strong message to every Iraqi out there. And that's when I thought about it. But during the game, I mean, it was insanity. I wasn't thinking, who. I honestly didn't even like. I just started like blacking out at a certain point. Just didn't know which player was playing what position, and had to ask the people around me. And um, yeah, it's I don't know. It's really a proud moment because a lot of the Iraqi players currently, about half of the team, are born in the diaspora or immigrated from Iraq. Excuse me. Really, um, really early in their lives, and going back and a guy named Ali Ali Hamadi, he plays for Luton Town actually in the championship. He said like our families did everything to kind of bring us to get us outside of Iraq because of how dangerous it was back then to be there. And going back there and giving the Iraqi people this is very special. And this is for me as an immigrant living outside of Iraq. Obviously, it's a very big moment and a very nice to see sort of the local guys combined with the diaspora guys from all different sects of the Iraqi people giving this one sort of common goal and achieving it.
All right. So let's talk about MLS now.
Yeah, you see how it's a different vibe?
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to make sure that we gave. So I think a lot of people get really upset at missing the World Cup, and I do understand that, especially given the whole thing. But I do think that not enough people put the achievement of making it as like the appropriate level of importance. You know what I mean? Like it was 40 years, for you to do it. It was 40 years between the U.S. beating England and going back in 1990. You know what I mean? Like there are these huge gaps, and making the World Cup is something that should be celebrated and important to everyone. And I'll tell you what, there's a big country out there where soccer is very important. They haven't made the last 3 World Cups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of other ones where soccer is very important and they haven't made even more than that. And so I do think like highlighting, whenever these sort of big, in this case, like genuinely earth-shattering things to Iraqi, fans and Iraqi people happen, like we should treat it like that.
Yeah, and I
like
appreciate that. Yeah.
it's going to be a tough World Cup, like
we're not talking about that.
you know what I mean? Like this is the thing. Like you have to celebrate these sorts of things because they don't happen very often, and who knows the next time that'll happen again. It could be in 4 years, it could be in 40.
And I think it's also important to note, like Iraq is not the only country in this sort of situation. DR Congo missed the World Cup for 52 years since their last qualification, which was under a whole different name, which was Zaire at the time, but the same country nonetheless. And 52 years that their people didn't see the World Cup. And I know this is an expanded World Cup and all, but and you look at all the debuts are going to happen, right? Jordan, Curacao, Haiti. Haiti missed it even longer, I think, than DR Congo. So, there's the new faces and there's the faces that, I mean, not in my lifetime. I've never seen them at the World Cup, right? So, to me, they are new faces in many ways. So, it's really cool, even though I know the expanded World Cup gets a bad rep, but just seeing these vibes and these scenes all across the world, I think it's really heartwarming.
Yeah. So anyway, moving back to MLS. We're gonna have a bit of a vibe shift back to talking about Nashville SC's loss to Chicago, but we did get a review in that I want to make sure, because I want to see if Valair gets this right. I know the answer, but I did have to think about it before I got it.
Okay.
So here's the way this goes. If you leave a 5-star review for Pharmaceutical Soccer, we will read your review on air. And so this review is from BJ Callahan. I don't think that's actually from BJ Callahan. He said, see if y'all can guess who it is. And I wasn't sure if that was trying to guess who sent in the question or if there was a question, and there is a question. Only one player on Nashville's roster does not have the letter A in their first or last name. Can you name it?
Oh God.
We're going
Did
to
you guess
weird
right?
places with these reviews.
Did you guess right?
It took me a little bit to think about it, but I got there.
Uh, this is very good radio. Uh, why don't we take a break? I'll think about it, and I'll come back the second segment, and I'll
Yeah,
I'll
so
tell you if
everyone
I'm
else thinks about it. I know somebody is like screaming at their phone right now that you don't have it yet. So we
wait.
will be
Joe Willis.
there. You go. You got
Oh
there.
yes, yes. Let's go.
So
I
great
really
questions.
freeze whenever there's a game that involves words or like letters. I don't know if like I think Steven has played like a board game with me that involves like any sort of like words, and it really wrecks my brain. So
Yeah,
this is why I freeze when I see anything
I,
along those
I
lines.
think you should make Stephen play Scrabble in Arabic and just see what happens.
Yeah, I think he would not like that. Just like this show, whenever he loses, he doesn't want to show up. That's all it is.
All right. So we will be back with more talk about Nashville, Chicago. Thanks for listening to Pharma Soccer. And welcome back to Pharmaceutical Soccer. Clay Trainum once again joined by Iraqi superstar Valair Shabilla. not joined by Stephen Robinson, who's probably getting ready for the Atlanta United Chattanooga FC U.S. Open Cup match. I think that's what he's
Oh
putting
yeah.
all his energy into right now.
He did say he was on a flight. I wonder if that flight is to go watch that game.
I mean, it could be. So enjoy Chattanooga, Stephen. We're going to talk about Nashville SC's 1-0 loss to Chicago, and I don't even know where to start. I think I think the way that I put it on Twitter, I think is the glass half full way of looking at it is that Nashville lost 1-0 in a game where a silly turnover gave up the goal and a keeper needed to stand on his head in order to keep it a 1-0 win. But the other, like, kind of more realistic way is Nashville gave up a goal in a way that they've given up goals in previous years. And couldn't really get a firm foothold into the game until the last 20 minutes or so. And maybe that's something that is of some concern. Now, me personally, I don't put a lot of stock into a one-off in MLS. I think you have to see it several times over the course of a season before you put a lot of stock in it, just the nature of the league. But I do think that that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think the other sort of big talking point or overarching point is away form, right? I mean, Nashville did get that
Okay.
win in Columbus. They got a draw in Dallas, but they were hanging on pretty closely in Dallas. And in Columbus, it was pretty much a last minute winner. Now, to be fair, in Columbus, I thought they kind of, once BJ put on the DPs, it was kind of a different game and Nashville looked good. But overall, there is something to be said about playing away from home. And I, the even the Forge game where Nashville won 2-0 away from home, it was not really anything that was that impressive. But then you look at the Miami performance away, right? And that was a pretty good one. I think from Nashville, and obviously they ended up getting the result they needed. So too early to draw any conclusions one way or another. I think this is more of a league-wide issue. But here's the one thing that I said after the Dallas game, and I'll say again here, is that if you are truly a Supporters Shield contender, you cannot let a goal in the 20 seconds in deter you from getting a result away from home. Like that is the bottom line. And maybe Nashville are not true Supporters Shield contenders in a week or 2 or 3 weeks. And maybe they'll focus on the Champions Cup and get the Champions Cup. Or maybe they exit the Champions Cup, then they become more of a Supporters Shield contender. It's too early in the season. We're only a handful of games in. It's not really a anything to draw conclusions from, or even hit the panic button by any means. It is, however, a downer based on where things were going before the international break. And if you remember, Clay, on this show, we said this international break is kind of inconvenient for Nashville. Yes, the players are going to rest and have this sort of break in between, but the players are on a high right now before the international break. And the team was on a high and the city was feeling it. and it just came at an ungreat, what is the word I'm looking for?
Inopportune.
Inopportune time. Thank you. Where just it kind of took away a little bit of Nashville's momentum and hype. Now they're back home on Tuesday. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later, and they have a really good opportunity to come back to that momentum. But in many ways, the Chicago games just felt like a continuation of the international break of like, well, nothing is really happening here, you know?
Yeah, and I do think like as a there are environmental factors at play. Like
Mhm.
the we all know the turf at Soldier Field can be, or the grass at Soldier Field. I'm using turf just generally to mean the ground, but the grass at Soldier Field can be a little bit unforgiving and a little strange, play weird. The wind is obviously pretty crazy at Soldier
Yeah.
Field right off the lake. And so there are various things, and you could tell by the way the ball was moving, not just with Nashville, but with Nashville and Chicago, that it wasn't conducive necessarily to playing a soccer match. But that was a really poor goal to give up in the first 20 seconds of a match. And it wasn't necessarily out of character for the last year and a half of Nashville, even if it was out of character for the last 2 months of Nashville.
Yeah.
And that is the part that I found concerning about it. Now, the other part that I found concerning about it is Nashville really didn't feel like they had a shot at coming back in that game until the last 20 minutes or so. The last 20 minutes or so, Nashville was really on top of things. Couple great saves from Brady for Chicago, and honestly, just getting Patrick Yazbek back on the field, I think really changed things for the better for Nashville. I don't think anybody in the midfield particularly covered themselves in glory in that first hour or so of the game.
I thought Matt Cochran was actually pretty good. I don't think he is there yet where he can control the game like Patrick Hasback can. And, I think Matt Cochran, Patrick Hasback is a much better partnership than Matt Cochran, Eddie Taxev. I think it works much better. It has, in the past, I thought it just looked better. And then I do want to talk about Eddie Taxev because, not to kind of just drag the guy by any means, but he, as sort of an experienced player in that midfield out of the two, he is the more experienced player. He needs to be better and more secure on the ball early on. And to answer your point, kind of Clay, about seeing this in the past, we saw Nashville give the ball away to even Messi when Inter Miami were here, and that's just kind of the risk they take, right? And that's the risk that comes out with playing on the front foot, drawing players to you, sort of absorbing the press before pushing up. But for Taxet to do that early on was a little bit sort of like you should know better. And I thought, honestly, the rest of the game he was fine. The only time I think he kind of he had another moment that was a little shaky. I think in the second half. I'm not remembering exactly, but I do think he is uh, prone to getting a little more frustrated, and maybe this is just his body language, and that's why we see it a little bit more with him. But I think he shows really when he's frustrated, and I think opponents are able to capitalize on that more often than not. I'm not saying that's what happened for the goal. I'm saying that's what happened after the goal a little bit. And
Yeah,
yeah, go-
I think I'm trying to say this judiciously as possible because I do know that Eddie Taxev is a good player and is a tremendously popular player. He's getting his own bobblehead night, of course. But like there are games where I think he drifts a bit. And he was really, really good the first half of last season and had some really, really poor moments in the back half of last season.
yeah.
And I have often wondered about the consistency there with him. That being said, I think he's been great this season. For the most part, we haven't seen any moments like this, but you'll take a few moments like this for the player that he has been so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and and
Yeah.
that's like again sort of similar to the trade off with attack and defense. Like you'll take a few leaky goals in order to have a better attack. I do want to I think we all kind of know what what went wrong there. I do want to say a lot of people, I saw a lot of talk about how Chicago, kind of putting down Chicago as a team. I don't think Chicago is going to be a bad team. I think Chicago's a clear playoff team. They've got, regardless of how you feel about him with the national team, I think they have a great MLS manager in Greg Berhalter, a guy who definitely had a chip on his shoulder playing against BJ Callahan after the last
Yeah.
few times against them. I think that it would be unfair to label them as anything other than a pretty decent MLS squad that Nashville will probably, see. Maybe they won't play them, but I think that it's fairly obvious to me that that's a playoff team in Chicago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had them actually in top 4, and I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah,
they
that's
finished
kind of how I
there. Like,
feel.
I don't think they are a bad team at all. Now, to be fair, their start to the season hasn't been great, and I think that's why people are
Right.
saying that. But I do wanna to your point, Clay, I do wanna say Chicago played a really good organized game against Nashville.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this is a Nashville show, so we're focused on what Nashville did wrong, but there's a lot that Chicago did right, especially in defense. I mean, they congested that midfield area and really limited Nashville to, like, the odd Christian Espinoza run, until that last 20 minutes, which just kind of became mayhem, and that's where Nashville thrived, I thought, the most during that entire game was just that last bit. But Nashville had what, like, point 0.79 XG throughout that whole match. That's probably their lowest of the season. I need to go back and check the Dallas one. It's probably the lowest or the second lowest. So looking at that, it's just eh, like uh, I think we should give credit to Chicago. At the same time, this is a Nashville team that has found ways to unlock teams in the past, right? And we have praised them for unlocking teams in the past, and they were close to unlocking them this time. But a man named Chris Brady showed up really big for Chicago, and I thought he was man of the match for both teams. Just an incredible match for him, and I think he was with the U.S. during the latest international window, and I don't think he got to play, but I do think he was kind of motivated by that a little bit, and just kind of showcase who he is and what he does, and really gave Chicago the win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the very first title, I was about to go check. I think the very first title of the first episode of Pharmaceutical Soccer
Yeah.
is "There's a Man in Chicago Who Ruined My Dreams" or something like that.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I think some people feel that way about Chris Brady after the weekend. I do want to bring this back to the positive though. Like, I don't think I think we both feel this way. I don't think there's enough in this game to really sit here and go like, oh, I'm really worried about this or really worried about that, because it's a game played after an international break and before a massive match. And so I do want to try and keep it relatively positive. So what are the things that you come out of that match feeling pretty good about? For me, like one of the biggest things for me is like, man, I really wish that Hani Mukhtar could have got that free kick goal to go in.
Yeah.
He needs one. He needs one bad. It's been a few years, and I was watching with La Brigada at a Mexican restaurant in Nolensville Pike, and I was like, if he gets one, he'll start to get him again because he's been so close, And 2022 buries it. There's no chance in my mind that he doesn't score there. And so I just want to see him maybe get back on track and start scoring some free kicks, because that makes Nashville even harder to defend. If they know they can't foul you within 30 yards, that's another tool in the toolbox, for this Nashville team. And so I really think getting that close, great save, but
Yeah.
like that's something to really look at, because he hasn't even really been close on some of these free kicks.
No, no. I mean, it was on target and it actually beat the keeper in many ways. It was behind him and he somehow still got to it. That's why that save was ridiculous. I
Yeah.
do want to say another thing about Hani Mukhtar is that you saw there was a moment in the match where things switched for him and he was able to take control there towards the end. Now, usually that happens literally from the moment that the first whistle goes. So we're not used to seeing a moment where he turns things around. But in that match against Chicago, it was when the subs came in, not the first set. I think it was the second set of subs. Hold on. I'm pulling this up because I want to get this right. Yes, when Ahmed Qasim and Reed Baker Whiting came in, 78th minute. From that moment on, Hani Mukhtar really took charge of the match. And you can definitely see that he really wanted it. And, just tried to be the creator, the sort of instigator in attack that Nashville have needed. But generally, he's like that from the first moment of the match. I just think that Chicago really handled him well. And what ended up happening is that when Nashville put on more attacking subs, there were more players for Chicago to, cover, and essentially gave Mukhtar a little bit more space to showcase what he does usually. So, I think another thing is just seeing him being able to turn things around for a game where he honestly didn't have the best performance before that free kick is actually really good, and I think that's a positive. And the other big positive for me, probably the biggest positive for Nashville coming out of this game, is that Andy Nahar is back to a certain level that we just haven't seen this season. And he, I think, was the best Nashville player on the pitch. There were a couple of really good runs. There were a couple of driving past defenders. On defending, he looked good one-on-one. These are the things that got him to an all-star game, right, last season. And not that he's been bad at all this season, but we just haven't seen him really. And having Christian Espinoza there has kind of overshadowed him a little bit on the right side. But seeing Nahar there, kind of bringing back that 2025 form was really positive for me, because I think for Nashville to be an effective team, they're going to need a really effective Hani Mukhtar and Andy Nahar.
Well, and I also think, it's easy to lose sight of it because it was his first career loss, but at least for
Oh yeah,
Nashville. But Brian Schwalke had a pretty good game.
yeah.
I really think that first half was real danger territory for Nashville. I don't think that Nashville could really get a full foothold, and Schwalke made some pretty good saves against. Again, I think the Chicago attack will be formidable, this season, and keeping Chicago to one goal, I think was a really good job from him. But I mean, obviously the real goalkeeper of the match was of course Brady. But I think it's one of those where if you're a Nashville fan, I think you're coming out of that game mightily annoyed at the way it played out. But there are bigger fish to fry, and one of them is potentially on Tuesday against Club America.
Yeah, that's going to be a rather huge match, I think. I think one of the biggest US Park has ever hosted. If you don't have tickets for it, I would say you should go to that one. I think that's going to be a pretty, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but I feel like there's going to be some drama involved. Just a hunch,
Yeah.
It's like there's going to be drama.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that match and sort of preview that and the weekend next. You are listening to Pharmaceutical Soccer. And welcome back to the final segment of Pharmaceutical Soccer. I'm assuming that if you've made it to the third segment, you know everything you need to know about Pharma Soccer. But in case you don't, make sure you follow us at Pharma Soccer on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you check out pharmasoccer.com, get you some merch. Also, check out 615 Soccer, where you can find a lot more from Valair Shabilla. 615 Soccer is the leading source for soccer news here in Nashville. And, subscribe, support the site, and you get a video version of this show, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the video version of this show, Valair,
Mhm.
why don't you give the video watchers what they missed in the first segment in case they missed it? There you go.
And
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 for
you will
those of
not
you,
know what I just did if you're listening to the audio. So you gotta
yeah.
you gotta sign up for a Kappa membership. That's all I gotta say.
So, so sign up for a CAFO membership and find out what Valair just did for the camera once again. Although this time it was in English and not Spanish.
See.
All right. Shout out to the Pequeño Sombrero. Now, we will we're going to talk about Club America. We're going to talk about Charlotte. But first off, there's some around the league news. The big news for certainly the aggregators around the league was that Miami opened up its new stadium, its Camp Nou, if you will, complete with a Leo Messi stand, and then proceeded to not win their game against Austin, which felt about right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it looks like a really nice stadium, actually.
Yeah, it looks cool.
You know,
It looks cool.
it's a little bit different than, the sort of stock MLS stadiums that we're seeing pop up. It
Yeah.
has a little bit more flair to it. This is just from pictures. I obviously haven't seen it, but I would like to go see a game there and see what happens. I do want to say that the person who scored the first goal at the new stadium, and I'm not saying the new stadium, no, new, the name of the stadium is Guilherme Biro. Biro, who is the left back for Austin. He's the one who scored the first goal there, not Lionel Messi, who scored 4
It
minutes after that, to be fair. But all the
it is
headlines had Messi scoring the first goal. So,
it is unbelievable. One of my favorite ones that I saw was FanDuel said that Messi scored the first goal, and I'm like, all right, does that mean that FanDuel is doing a payout for first goal scorer for Messi? Because
yeah,
Messi scored the second goal,
yeah,
and here they are.
it's it's truly just showcases where this league is, but also it shows you where the media landscape is, where
Exactly.
headlines are not necessarily truthful to the subject.
Yeah, and speaking of the media landscape, I just do want to mention this that just want to give some solidarity to Franco Panizzo. I'm not exactly sure on the last name. Been there, buddy. I'll
Yeah,
leave it at that.
so he got rejected after covering Inter Miami for a very long time. He got rejected from the new stadium and wasn't given access. Now I'll say Nashville fans do have some sort of beef with this guy because of what he said recently, and that's kind of part of it. And a lot of people disagree with him on things. I don't necessarily know him, but I think that's all part of being a journalist and covering a team. It's not to appease people; it's to kind of convey your thoughts and convey what happens. So that shouldn't be the reason he shouldn't get access to a team he's been covering for years and years.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth noting for those of us that have been around the league for a long time, me particular, I think I mentioned this in the Discord. He used to write for soccerbyivas.net back in the day, which is that's like 20 years ago. And that was like when there was only like 3 or 4 websites that even wrote about MLS. And so I do think like it just every I think that it's so small time for a place that has Messi playing for them. It's so small time.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear about media drama, but I just think it's nice to remind people that, hey, we've got supporters that are on this show. Like, it is what it is. But that's not really the job of a lot of media that cover this league. The job is to cover the team in a truthful and honest way and to, have takes that maybe don't always align with what maybe the team wants out there. That's what the team website is for. This
Yes.
is for something else.
Yes.
So anyway, just solidarity.
And and
Go ahead.
yes, things haven't been peachy always here in Nashville. Um, but it's I think there are huge improvements that have happened, and I think we should mention them on this show
Oh,
of,
of course. Of
of where we
course.
are now compared to where we were back in the day.
And I think that is largely true for the league as a whole. I
Yes.
think that is
Yeah.
largely true for the league as a whole. Unfortunately, you just get these stories every once in a while, and just wanted to mention it because a lot of people that don't follow MLS have been talking about it. So I just wanted to mention it. But back into the soccer stuff, the stuff that people actually care about. Um, Orlando.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're a very good team, am I right? And they have the solution just ready to go in the summer. Antoine Griezmann, baby. He's gonna just do it all. Gonna defend.
Yeah.
He's gonna be a goalkeeper. He's gonna be in midfield. He's gonna score the
So
goals. Yeah.
one of my favorite stories, I'm going to take this back to Everton. One of my favorite stories about Idrissa Gueye when he played at PSG is that he was on pretty good terms with Messi, right?
Mhm.
And so Adrissa is he is an Evertonian. Like he loves Everton. He's back there on his second stint. And so while Everton was in a relegation fight, he was at PSG watching Everton struggle like mightily to stay in the Premier League. And Messi asked him why he watches that team because they're terrible and they always lose. and, but Idrissa was loyal. He came back. And I do wonder if people are having those same sorts of conversations
Hey,
with Antoine
Antoine,
Griezmann in
uh,
Orlando.
why? We know you're a weird guy, but why Orlando?
So Orlando was, of course, playing LAFC, which had a pretty fun little moment for the Nashville fans out there.
Yeah, so at the end of the match, LAFC were up 5-0, and Jacob Schaffelberg comes on, his first match for LAFC, crosses it, header from Tyler Boyd into the goal. So yeah, goal made in Nashville. Tyler Boyd has played for LAFC in the past this season, but I believe that was his first goal for the club, and obviously Schaffelberg's that was his first appearance and first assist for the club. So a little bit of a Nashville connection there.
First goal for Boyd in like 200 days, or not 200 days, 2 years, like 600 some odd days.
Yeah, it was a header.
It's crazy.
I would not have put money on that.
Yeah, so now Schaffelberg and Boyd have 2 goal contributions.
Which is probably
For,
more. No, we're not going there.
I'm sorry, that was rude. Red Bull New York, big win by them, of course. And then, how do we think Cincinnati's going to be this year?
What makes you say that? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think they're a playoff team, but the fall is real. I think the fall down is very real there, and yeah, it's I just want to talk about one team and one team only, and no disrespect to Nashville. I know this is a Nashville show, but I just love my San Jose Earthquakes, baby. I am all in, baby. I am all in on the Bruce Arena train. I don't care. I don't care. I will lose my journalistic integrity for this team. This is obviously this is a bit, but I do love uh, the way they're playing, the way they are handling themselves, and as you all know, I do like Bruce Arena a lot, and I think he's got this team playing really well. They're doing it with young kids, academy kids, college drafts, stuff like that, man. And it's just nice to see a 20-year-old like Chakiris just take a game by the scruff of the neck and just be that guy time after time. And obviously Preston Judd had a great game, another sort of American guy who
Yeah, that's a
um
baseball name if I've ever heard one.
Preston Judd, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Bowleroo, another guy. Again, like these guys are, not world beaters by any means, but they are just balling out for the San Jose team and for Bruce Arena.
Hey, the single best thing I could say about San Jose is that they let Christian Espinoza leave for nothing.
You know, that will always be a dark spot for them. I feel like because having Christian Esposito on this team would have probably made them a Supporters Shield contender. But even as is, they're third in the West and really sort of thriving right now.
All right, so that's enough MLS talk. Let's talk about it. Nashville's playing Club America tomorrow as we talk about this right now. What can we say about Club America in Nashville that we haven't said about prestige television the last 20 years?
Um, I think from a eyes on Nashville internationally and nationally and all of it, this is probably only second to the Inter Miami Leagues Cup final in terms of eyes on this team, on this game. I'm not saying this is the biggest game or anything like that. I'm just saying in terms of people watching this game, this will be at the same level as the Inter Miami Leagues Cup final, which was watched by millions and millions of people across the world. Club America is the biggest brand in North America. It is the biggest soccer brand. Coca-Cola is the biggest brand. I don't know. Biggest soccer brand. But it's it's sort of a symptom of where Nashville find themselves in this sort of high level competition. Playing against the likes of Club America is a really testament to where Nashville is currently and where it is on the landscape. I will say this. on the pitch, Club America has not looked convincing this season. I mean, they're not bad, obviously, because if you look at the money they spend, it's probably triple Nashville's budget, but they haven't looked convincing. Their last round was against the Philadelphia Union. They beat the Union away from home 1-0 and then came back home and tied 1-1. So it's not like
And
they're world beaters.
Philly very much looked like the team going through the last 15 minutes of that match.
Yes. It was very, very, very narrow. And then in the league, they are in a playoff position, but they're not in a sort of dominating position by any means. And they haven't won a game in their last three. So their last three was a draw against Philadelphia Union, and then a loss to Pumas, the international break, and came back and drew to Santos. So again, not coming in at the best form. They had the international break as well, so a lot of their guys weren't around. And then, as far as times to play Club America, this is as good as ever for Nashville SC, really. But this is a very, very big point here. They are still Club America. They have a lot of quality. I'm not saying this is an easy match because it is not.
Yeah, I think it's worth remembering that, Nashville has 3 DPs. Club America would have significantly more as far as pay is concerned. I was just going to say, now, technically, neither of these teams have beat each other. But I think Club America might also have a little bit of a chip on its shoulder coming back to Geodis Park. And I do think that might make up a little bit of maybe some of the playing or lack of success playing that they've had. Maybe a little bit of an intangible factor. Now, several years ago, Nashville played a friendly against Club America at Geodis Park that featured a lot of backups that ended in penalties, in which Nashville won. I don't know why they did penalties in a friendly, but they did. And Nashville won the penalty shootout.
Yep.
And then, quite famously, there was a penalty shootout in the Leagues Cup. What was that, quarterfinals?
Yes.
Yeah, quarterfinals.
Yes.
So quarterfinals, same round as here. And I thought that Nashville lost on penalties. And they did not convey that there was VAR going on. Valair knew. Basically, nobody in the stadium knew.
No, I didn't know until 10 minutes after. So it wasn't like I knew right away. Yeah.
And we had some shenanigans going on from our seats in the stadium. And so given, things that were going on, there were lots of fans running all over the field. The security guard had torn his ACL. There's all kinds of stuff that was going on. My wife and I decided that we were just going to get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And decided to leave, thinking that Nashville had lost. And it turns out that they went to VAR for a penalty and had to retake a penalty, and Nashville ended up advancing on penalties. And we found out in the car. So
there's a bit of history here.
Yes, but there will not be penalties, or there'll be a penalty shootout. I don't know if there'll be penalties, but there will not be a penalty shootout this time around because this is only the first leg.
Yes, there you go. This game there won't be. The next game maybe.
Yeah.
I do think it's also interesting that this is the first time Nashville will play in Mexico, especially Estadio Azteca. Yeah. I think this is a very, very big thing, but we'll preview that next week, I guess. I do want to say, I'm going to say a few names here from Club America just to give you perspective, because I bet if you're listening to this episode, you have heard these names. And Alex Zendejas, USMNT player, Eric Sanchez, Mexican national team player, Brian Rodriguez used to play for LAFC, played in Spain, I believe. And guess who's still on the roster? Jonathan Dos Santos. I actually didn't know that.
Oh, wow.
That is a blast from the past. I mean, if you've watched soccer in the last 10 years, you have heard of Jonathan Dos Santos. Ended up playing for Barcelona at a certain point. So, there's a lot. There's a lot of people on this Club America team that have been around the soccer sphere for a while. And I just think it's gonna be big. It's a good opportunity for Nashville to showcase what they have.
Yeah. So how do we think it plays out on Tuesday, Valair? We're not doing a full prediction. We'll do predictions right at the end. But
I think Nashville are gonna come out swinging. I think they're gonna want to prove something, and kind of like we saw the beginning of that Inter Miami game. and it's just going to come down to whether or not they can actually finish their chances, unlike that Inter Miami game.
I think that's fair. I think Nashville is going to be on their throats at the start, and it's just a matter or not. It's a matter of whether or not they give up a goal in that period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after that massive game with Club America, there's an MLS game.
Oh, never heard of it.
So Huntsville's definitely playing this weekend, right? Like,
yeah. So I guess Nashville goes to Charlotte, and then 2 weeks later, Nashville hosts Charlotte. Why? I just want to know what is the purpose of this. But anyway, I find it really hard to talk about Charlotte when there's such a big game coming up first. You know what I mean? But Charlotte have kind of been hit or miss depending on which game you watch. Against good teams, they've kind of struggled, I would say. But they're playing at home. That place has been not great for Nashville overall. I seem to remember just some, a 4-1 loss, I believe, in their first season.
There was the concussion last year.
Yeah. Like, there's multiple sort of bad juju going on there. So we'll see where Nashville goes with it. But I do believe it will be a similar lineup to what we saw in Columbus. And I don't only believe that, I think that should be the case. Because if you lose the Charlotte game, it is what it is. You move on. But especially if this result against Club America is a positive one, when you go into Estadio Azteca, you want your top guys to be ready to go. And you want to come to it with a good result first here at home, obviously.
Yeah, especially, I would say playing on a Tuesday versus a Wednesday might mean, maybe you see a little bit more action from one of the first team guys.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's not just going to Estadio Azteca. It's playing late at night after the travel, too. Like, it's
it's like a 10:30 kickoff, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a completely different game schedule that you're on. So I have to imagine we'll see a little bit of action at the last 20 or 30 minutes from the guys that will be playing at Estadio Azteca. But I also think whatever happens in Nashville is probably also going to inform what we see in Charlotte as well, to some extent. Like, if Nashville gets a pretty heavy win against Club America, I think, maybe we'll see something a little bit different against Charlotte. I'm not sure, but as anyone who's watched MLS for a long time knows, the entire country of Mexico is a house of horrors for MLS. It has always been tough to play games in Mexico for the league. Although I think a lot of that is shaded by results 10 years ago. I think a lot of teams have gone down there and managed to put together good performances. Last round, that was not really the case, but I think that there were other factors contributing to it last round. It wasn't necessarily a league-wide indictment.
And I do want to say that if Nashville pulls through and they win this round, and on the other side of this bracket, or what's waiting Nashville in the semifinal, if Nashville were to pull through, is a match between Seattle and Tigres. Now, what city does Tigres play in? The great city of Monterrey, Mexico. And please, to whatever's happening out there, to whoever's in charge of this, make it happen so I can go back to Monterrey. That's all I got to
say. Valair had a good time in Monterrey.
It was amazing. I love it.
Valair became a celebrity in Monterrey as well.
Low-key. All right, should we predict this and get out of here?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Valair, what's happening this week? Where can people follow you?
Yes, please follow me on Instagram and TikTok first and foremost. I'm doing more like wider soccer coverage there, stuff that's maybe not related to Nashville SC. But you'll see some MLS stuff. You'll see some Nashville SC stuff still. Like, it's not like I'm quitting on Nashville SC or anything. But if you want specifically Nashville SC stuff, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, and as well as 615 Soccer, you'll see my articles. You'll see Ben Wright's articles, all that sort of stuff. So, follow me on all of those because I'm a versatile. I'm a peacock. You gotta let me fly. So go to those places, and then I think Nashville is gonna tie Club America 2-2 at home, setting up a really, really tasty match at Estadio Azteca.
2 away goals. That's tough.
I think the goals are going to come from Sam Surridge, and Alex Muyl. And then Nashville will go to Charlotte, where they will draw the game 0-0, and there will be no goals, but Brian Schwacke will be the man of the match. So there you go. That's where I'm at.
All right, so shout out to the movie The Other Guys. Valair does realize that peacocks can't fly. That's a movie quote.
It's a quote, and if you didn't get the quote, that's on you for not knowing the movie. That's not on me.
Yeah, The Other Guys, a great Samuel L. Jackson in The Rock feature.
I knew you were going to say that.
Great feature with Samuel L. Jackson and Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yes.
That's what I know that movie for more than anything. The two main stars.
Yeah.
You can follow me at Claylesshole on Instagram and Twitter, where you'll get some adorable pictures of me and my wife's cat that we had done over the weekend. So you're welcome for that. Oh, by the way, Valair, I just want you to know, because I didn't mention it. So yesterday I went to Fall Creek Falls, and we went to all these waterfalls. We were living like a real Hani Mukhtar Sunday. And we went to all these waterfalls, and I was wearing a shirt of Jesus and Judas, and it said it started with a kiss. How did I end up like this on it?
I had to see a picture of that.
It's the perfect Easter shirt, and I was so proud of it. And like 4 people mentioned it to me, so I just was. So shout out to Instagram ads; they got me.
I think the people are so excited to hear about this shirt. So thank you for sharing with the world.
And you
tell
can
me this prediction though.
You can learn more at Claylesshole on Instagram. But
learn more about the shirt.
But anyway, I think that Nashville is going to get a 2-1 win over Club America. I think Club America gets a goal late to get that away goal, which may prove crucial in the second leg. And then Charlotte, I'll be honest with you, 3-1 loss.
Yeah, that's fair. Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have high hopes for that, especially if it's a close game against Club America. So anyway, we will talk about both of those games and more next week, potentially with Stephen Robinson on there, because, you know, Valair, I just want you to know that it could be a big weekend, or it could be a big week for Stephen. Because if Michigan wins tonight, that means that his basketball team would have won, you know, a national title. That Indiana won football. I don't think we're going to count Iraq qualifying as a title, but
Arsenal.
But
yeah,
there is a chance.
Yeah. As if Arsenal didn't need any more pressure. This podcast is under pressure now.
Yeah. The spotlight has turned to you, Mikel Arteta. Yeah. Anyway, thanks y'all for listening. We'll be back next week.